So I'm going to remove the carburetor. First thing I suppose I'm going to do is just take that fuel line off. It just pulls off on this. Now there's the throttle cable on these CV type carb. Right, zoom in. Let's zoom into the locking nut at the top of that threaded. There's a locking nut at the top and there's a sort of adjusting nut at the bottom that holds it in place. So I've loosened that top locking nut. Let me get a pointer. So I've loosened that off. So I should just be able to pull this threaded stud piece from out of the holder and get a better clearer view. Oops. Okay, so now it's clear. It's been pulled out of that little part. That's actually it's much simpler than putting it in the cap. I must admit, some carburetors you put in the cap. So then the cable goes down a recess and it finishes with a lug right there. You should just be able to pull it out. That's a bit fiddly. The lug is a little bit tight. There it is. Right. Okay, now there's a Jubilee clip and the other one that needs a screwdriver. Alright, well, I've got a PZ1. This is at the airbox end. I've got a PZ1 posi drive, which fits in there quite easily actually. So that loosens off. Now yours might be different because I'm not sure that's the actual original Jubilee clip for that. I mean, this one isn't the original Jubilee clip, but it's the same sort of idea. And then it should just be able to rotate the carb, which it just did right there. Right, let's have a go then. Right, some residual petrol in this carburetor. rather late. Take the drain plug off. Yeah, took the drain plug off. There's quite a lot of petrol in that float bowl actually, which is a bit annoying really. These 4 screw bolts PZ1 for the float bowl. Separated the float bowl from the main body. There's a couple of interesting things. If I have a look at the bottom of the float bowl, there's quite a lot there's some dirt down there, some actual bits of debris. But what's more of note is that this pin is what I assume holds the floats in position. It's the pivot pin basically for the floats on the valve, and it just fell out. Now this bike was in the back of a van. It got leant down on its side. If this pin actually dislodged, it's feasible that the float bowl was faulty, because the floats didn't have the pivot pin correctly. You see, the pivot pin. Interesting interesting staining going on. There's definitely some staining, a tide mark. I think the fuel definitely went stale. Might have been stuck at that level. Anyway, ifs and ands, might be anything, mightn't it? But we just got to basically clean it now and put it back together. Now if I have a compressed air blaster, I can put some compressed air through the jets. Very dusty. Look at that. Whoops. Look at this dust. Yeah, that's strange. That dusty stuff in there. So here is part of the seat for the valve, for the float bolt assembly. The pivot pin goes through there. There's I think it's a PZ2. I'm going to remove that. Just want to remember the position of this. It's going sort of perpendicular to this main jet housing. Okay, I'm not actually sure that this should lift out. I think it should surely lift out because that was... Anyway, so I've got a nice flat blade screwdriver to take this main jet out, and then down there we'll need a smaller flat blade screwdriver to get that pilot jet out, or other jet, to make sure they're not blocked, because there's certainly there's plenty of scummy sort of tide mark stuff going on here. It's got to be cleaned up. Now I've got rather a special looking screwdriver. It's actually an electrician screwdriver, but it does fit. It does fit down there quite nicely if I can just locate it. Okay, so I'm going to try and undo that jet. Okay, there she is. That's what came out. Quite a small dude. That's why they can be blocked up. It does look actually like it's blocked up. Let's have a look up at the sky. Turn it round. See, if that's blocked, that would explain why it isn't starting. Got ya. There you go. She's clear now. It was clear. So you can see this sort of, I don't know how to describe it, sort of scummy tide marking. This is the new, it was quite a new carburetor, in fact it was brand new, like last year, but it hasn't run. The stale fuel's kind of, I just think it can probably be cleaned with a rag and some petrol. It doesn't really need to be ultrasonically cleaned at the moment. We just need to make sure. Now I've cleared that jet, I just wonder if where it goes. The other jet, the main jet I've taken out, is quite a big old hole actually. It's nowhere near blocked. So I'll have a closer inspection, but just basically it's just going to clean this manually. Okay, so I've got the valve over that tongue. Pop the valve in the valve hole. So the valve is in the valve hole over that tongue, and just get ready to put the pin in. Okay, so I didn't video me putting the float bolt back on, but it's quite straightforward there. So I'm just going to put that back together again. Mind out that you don't tilt it side to side like you have to put it in. You just have to be careful, don't you? Right, so I've got the car back. First thing we want to do is attach the fuel line and make sure that float bowl's not leaking, and then we'll put the throttle cable on, give it, maybe tighten these up, maybe try and start it before we've tightened those up. Oops. Make sure that air filter end is doesn't look like it's securely in there, so I'll have to make sure everything's secure. Okay. So while it is running, let me just alright, I'm a bit loath to get it running at the moment because it's showing up with no oil in there at all. So again, there is a bit of warmth in the head barrel there now. So we've got to find some oil for it. It's 10W40. Okay, well, put some oil in it. It's about halfway. Found some oil. Okay, 10W40. I've got the key. Alright, the tap's been on for a while, so no leaks. Okay. Let's use the choke. I'm going to leave it. If it's running, just leave it. Open that foot a bit. Interesting. Alright, I'm actually going to put some fresh fuel in it. Now the fuel crisis has come and gone. I'm going to put some fresh fuel in there because the state of the inside of that carb, you know, the whole fuel system is probably like it. Alright, well, I've put some fuel in there, fresh fuel, enough to dilute probably what's in there. But of course, we have to allow it to work through. Maybe it still needs a bit of choke. I lifted the choke up that time. Now I'm chasing the tail, you see. Bit of a bugger, isn't it? Flip the throttle. Play with the throttle. I'm gonna keep the throttle closed. It's probably blocked up again. A very small hole, isn't it? One thing I've learned is taking that carb off and putting it back together is a bit fiddly, you know. That could be the new fuel system. Can't win them all, can you? Yeah, so as a footnote, it starts really easily and idles up 1500 and then gets up to about 2,500 and then just dies off. So the jet for starting, that was the one that was blocked and we cleaned. It starts fine now. I think we've got to take the carb off and clean the power jet or whatever it's called, you know, the main jet. It might unblock, but it's probably unlikely. throw the toolbox at that carburetor. Now, this is the main jet. Now, in order to remove that, I actually originally thought, because there's a little pin where that hole is, there's loads of holes, but if you don't know the hole I'm talking about. Okay, that hole there, there's a little pin, and I knocked that pin out, thinking that you just pull the main jet through here, but you don't. So I've had to get really ballistic with this thing. Well, let's explain what we've got here. This is the main needle valve. Okay, it needs a clean, and there it's in its rubber membrane, which basically you just pull it out carefully. Where that circle is where this membrane seats. There's a little divot, sort of part of the membrane there with a form on it, probably to get the rotation right. After that goes in this nice long spring, and there's the cap, and the cap is held in by 4 PZ2 screw bolts. So I didn't film any of that, but now I'm going to remove that needle valve, and you remove it from the upwards position, because I've been trying to push it out the bottom, but it doesn't come out that way. So ideally you'd use a piece of wood for this, which I'm going to do. Okay, I didn't have a piece of wood, but I put a piece of masking tape over my Tommy bar, and basically all I had to do was press on it, and it's literally fallen straight through. So let's see if we can see it. Okay. Can't see much, can we? Right. Let's give it a bit more persuasion. Here she comes. Alright. What a long beast, isn't she? That's the end of the Tommy bar. No, it isn't. Right, I should just be able to. There we go. Right, so this is the offending item. This is why it wasn't revving, I'm pretty sure. It would start because we cleaned the pilot jet, but these jets are all blocked, and it's covered in that dust. Sort of filthy, dirty fuel it must have been. Anyway, so I'm going to go away and clean these in the compressed air laboratory. This is the little locating pin. There's a slot in the jet, that cut out there, and when the little pin is in its little home, which is that hole there where my thumbnail is, it means that the rotation of the jet is correct, so that the vapours, the atomized vapours of fuel air mixture, are at the correct, of a designed angle. These holes, it's like an atomizer, vaporizer holes. If they're facing the wrong way, it won't run as it was designed to. So the first thing I'm going to do, I didn't need to remove that, but I did, so I'm going to put that back first. It's not necessary to remove that locating pin. Okay, I've put the little locating pin back in. Not sure, it should go in a little bit further, but it's got enough proud. It's proud there, and that should, well, you can't put it in any other way now because that bit's proud. So that's how a locating pin works. So I've got to put the jet in now, and I'm going to use these forceps that I got from a fish and tackle shop years and years and years ago. So I just need to work out which way around this goes. I'm putting it in from the top, putting the jet in from the top, so we can just hold it like this and pop her in there in the right rotation, and then line it up. Line it up with the, well, you can't see because it's obscured, there you go, and there's the locating pin is just visible down the end of that hole. See, it's protrusion down the end there. So I'll just do that with the forceps and then pick up all my tools that are dropping on the floor. So having put the main jet back in place, I've put his screw back in there, hold it in place now, screw and washer there, screw bolt and washer. So next I want to really address the needle here that's a bit dirty, so I'm going to go away and clean that, and we'll pop that on next. Okay, again with this carburetor there's a little form right there which is for locating. It matches the form that sticks out, so this carefully goes back in, and those forms line up, and that's just so that the rotation is correct. Can't seem to line myself up at the moment. Trying to get the needle in the hole. God blimey. Right, I think I'm going to have to do this off camera, but you get the idea. It's needle, it goes down into the needle jet valve holder, the atomizer that we just put in. So that's lined up. Yeah, at the moment it's a bit proud. The needle is just over the hole. It's going in there nicely. So what we need to do is make sure that this membrane is all seated very nicely, and then we'll pop the spring back in. Okay, well after the spring goes on, then you put the cap. It doesn't seem to have a rotation for the cap, and that's just held in with those 4 screw bolts. So now what I'm going to do at this point is actually check this pilot valve is clear, pilot jet is clear again. I've cleared it once, but I'm going to check that again, and then I'll be putting the floats back in with the float assembly and the little valve that seats down there. And as the bike was running earlier, I know that the float bowl was filling up, and it was running, but I think this jet here, the main jet, was blocked because it wouldn't throttle up. So, you know, as part of the fun, we will have a look and see if it runs later. Okay, so the float valve just goes over that tongue, a little sort of wire. Now I'm just putting the hinge pin, the linch pin of the floats back in, and on this one it just slides in. It's quite easy to see. The bike was laying on its side at one point, and I think this pin fell out, and then it just sat there not running properly, and hence all that staining. It's only staining, it shouldn't be too much of a problem now. And then last but not least, the drain plug bolt, which is a 10mm bolt, goes in that hole where my thumbnail is. So we'll pop that back in, and then this carb is ready for fitting. So it's a bit of a fight this time. I had to angle the carburetor, and hopefully I didn't knock that float bowl out of its seat. So what happens is we put this pair of things goes in here, in that slot. This is the throttle cable, like that. Actually, you don't do it like that. Sorry about that. Do it the reverse. So the first thing is that lug. The lug goes in the hole, and then the wire goes around into a recess. and then you can put that back in there like that, and then tighten that up to adjust the throttle like later on. And then just attach the throttle, attach the fuel to the float bowl or to the carburetor, turn it on. Let that float bowl fill up, put the choke on. Could just tighten up that Jubilee clip while I'm here. Then I have to go and find the keys to the bike. That's better, isn't it? I'll let it warm up for a bit, okay? Alright, so while it's just beginning to start, probably just start to tighten up these, which can be a bit notorious, to be honest. I just wanted to check the exhaust as well. I thought earlier the exhaust might be blocked. There's definitely gases coming out. I'm just amazed that the gases are so clear. You know what I mean? I mean, like, there aren't any. I know it's not a very big engine, but there's just like, there's no colour coming out the back there. It's colourless. Totally colourless. Anyway, so like last night, we couldn't get over 2,000 or 3,000 RPM, so let's have a look now. Oh yeah, and that's going to go all the way, really. That's going all the way. So that's what it was. That was that block main jet, and I don't like rebuilding carburetors on the best of days, but that one was a necessary. That's what it was. Maybe I didn't do these up tight enough, but I think it needs a new gasket there. Oh well, I'll have to keep an eye on that. At least it's running, it sounds quite nice. Amazing, there's absolutely no colour coming out of the back there. Sounds alright and smooth. It's been on quite a journey with me, this bike, really. You know, if you look back over those couple of 3 years ago when I first got my CBT, which has expired during the lockdown, I haven't really renewed it, so I've had other things to do, and there we are. I've got to do some more painting on this. Next time I'll use some fuel-proof lacquer. There you go. Even learned on it. Yeah, that sounds alright. I'll have to look in the manual. I've got it sort of idling at about 1500 RPM. Let's just have a look at that choke. Take you down to the choke, which by the way does say, if you look really closely, it says on, down. So there you go. A little bone of contention earlier. I'm going to take the choke right off now. There's a bit of warmth in the head there, and the barrel fins. So let's have a quite happy with that. I'm quite happy that it's functioning. Now, you know, maybe it needs a filter in life, but there should be a filter in the tank. But obviously, having a look at the state of the inside of the carburetor, you know, maybe that filter's broken or disintegrated over time or something. So it might be an idea for me to put an inline filter, but it's a bit close to this air cooling. So that's something I have to get a really diddy one. So anyway, thanks for watching this, and I'll probably get on with something different soon.